The film opens with a couple who are both tourists. The girl, named Hyder, had come to Australia with her tour group, but after oversleeping, the two of them were left behind when the group moved on. Taking advantage of the moment, they decide to head to the seashore for the Shark Edge experience, an adventure where tourists are placed inside a cage and lowered into the ocean, giving them the chance to see sharks up close. The man running this experience is named Tucker, and he calls it the Tucker Experience. Since Tucker wasn't around at that moment, the couple went to one of his friends, who explained that Tucker wanted to take a few days off and wouldn't be available. But just then, Tucker himself showed up, full of energy and excitement. "How could I refuse you like that?" he said. "Of course, I'll make sure you both get the experience." He takes them on his boat and heads out to sea. On the way, Tucker begins to share his story. "When I was a kid, I survived a shark attack. The scars are still on my body," he says, showing them the marks. "Since that day, I've felt this strange connection with sharks." Hyder replies, "I can only imagine how difficult this must be for you, surviving something that terrifying and now working among sharks every day. It can't be easy. If it were anyone else, they'd never even look at the ocean again." But Tucker shakes his head. No, it's not the shark's fault." Soon, Tucker begins tossing blood into the water. The couple is lowered into a cage, and within minutes, sharks start circling around them. They are thrilled and amazed to see the predators so closely. They even realize that as long as a person doesn't panic, the sharks don't get aggressive or attack. After the dive, they come out of the water happy and thankful. Just as they're about to leave, Tucker suddenly reveals his true nature. Out of nowhere, he stabs Hyder's friend in the neck and throws his body back into the ocean. Hyder screams desperately for help, but in the middle of the sea, there's no one to hear her. Tucker now stares at her with a devilish grin. What he does to her isn't shown. The scene cuts away. The film shifts to a new character, an American girl named Jeff, the true protagonist of the story. She is seen surfing, skillfully riding the ocean waves on her surfboard. Afterward, she heads to a nearby gas station where she encounters a young man, an agent. Her car won't start, and she clearly needs help. Jeff owns a large camper van where she lives, but despite that, she prefers keeping to herself and initially refuses his request. Still, the boy insists, and Jeff reluctantly gives in, offering him a ride. During the drive, the two talk at length and slowly begin to like each other. They became close friends because both shared a love for surfing. Wanting to spend more time together, they parked Jeff's van outside the boys' house and enjoyed each other's company. At one point, Jeff's friend tossed out a piece of cloth that had been used to secure the surfboard. By now, Jeff's friend had grown completely serious about their relationship. He told her, "We should live together. I feel like we met for a reason." But Jeff was different. She wasn't the type to stay in one place for long. She didn't even go inside his house. The boy went in alone to cook food, but by the time he returned, Jeff had already taken the van and left, breaking his heart. Even while missing her, he was left standing there. Jeff drove straight to the beach to surf. She needed fins for her surfboard, but since her friend had thrown them away, she began searching around a nearby truck. The truck, however, belonged to Tucker, who suddenly appeared from behind. Tucker handed her the fins, but during their conversation, he carefully tried to make her reveal important details, like whether she was alone or with someone. He always asked these questions before making his move, the same way he had tricked Hyder and her friend earlier into admitting they were separated from their group. But Jeff didn't answer him directly. Frustrated, Tucker left with his truck. Just then, Jeff received a message from her friend still saying, "We should meet." Jeff thought about replying, but suppressing her feelings, she refused. That decision would prove to be her biggest mistake, because Tucker came from behind, caught her off guard, knocked her unconscious, and dragged her away. He locked Jeff inside his car. After a long drive, he placed her on his boat and sailed out to sea. The next morning, her friend reached the shore looking for her, but Jeff was nowhere to be seen. Only her van was parked there. He tried calling her, and the ringtone came from inside the van. Tucker had staged it cleverly. He tossed her surfboard elsewhere and left it in the van, making it look like Jeff had drowned. Meanwhile, when Jeff regained consciousness, she found herself in a cabin below deck. Her mouth was gagged, and her hands were tied to a bed. On the bed next to hers lay Hyder, also bound. Not understanding what was happening, Jeff screamed for help, but in the middle of the ocean, there was no one to hear. Hyder calmly explained the situation to her. Jeff began searching desperately for something sharp to cut the ropes, hairpins, nails, anything, but there was nothing. Then her eyes fell on the wall in front of her. A girl's name was scratched there. Jeff froze. She realized another victim had been tied up here before her. That girl must have carved her name out of hopelessness, knowing she'd never escape. Jeff tried everything to free herself, while Hyder just lay silently. Hyder had already tried it all before. Now she was exhausted and broken. Up above, Tucker sat calmly on the deck, fishing. Jeff asked Hyder, "Will someone be looking for you?" Hyder replied, "There was a boy with me. He was supposed to find me, but something terrible happened to him here." From that, Jeff realized Tucker had killed him. Then Hyder asked, "Will someone come looking for you?" Jeff sighed, "Maybe, but not anymore." Yet her friend still thought of her constantly. Confused and restless, he noticed Jeff's van being taken away. Disturbed, he thought, that's her home. Where would she go without it? His worry grew stronger. He went straight to the police station and began searching for Jeff with their help. Meanwhile, after struggling all night, Jeff was still tied down. Exhausted, she sat in despair. That's when she noticed a wire sticking out from Hyder's clothes. She was about to use it to unlock the cuffs when Tucker entered the room with bread and water. The cabin was sweltering hot. Hyder quickly grabbed the water and drank. But because she kept covering herself with a sheet, Tucker grew suspicious. Before he could pull the sheet away, Jeff distracted him. "Give me my food! I'm starving!" she snapped. She also drank quickly. Tucker glared at them, trying to intimidate them before leaving. The moment he was gone, Jeff tried again to work the lock with the wire, but soon her vision blurred. Her eyelids grew heavy. Tucker had drugged the water. Before she could free herself, she collapsed unconscious. Both of them did. When Jeff woke again, she found herself tied to a chair on the upper deck. In front of her, Hyder was strapped in a harness, suspended by a belt. Tucker had set up a camera to record everything. He called it the chute. He began cutting Hyder's hair and rambling. "God isn't above. God is below, in the water. Sharks are God. They're not evil. Humans are. Humans kill them." Then he threw blood into the sea. Within moments, sharks circled the boat. Using the rope, he lowered Hyder into the bloody water. Hyder thrashed helplessly. The sharks grew furious and attacked, ripping her apart. Her body was torn in two, her agonizing death captured on Tucker's camera. Jeff screamed in horror. Trembling, she picked up a piece of charcoal and carved her own name on the wall beside Hyder's, joining the others. Because there weren't just one or two names. Dozens of names were scratched into the wall, some crossed out. Tucker wasn't just insane. He was a serial killer. Dozens of tourist girls had been trapped here, tortured, and killed. Proof of his madness was stacked upstairs. Tapes of every girl's death, each labeled, each containing strands of their hair. Hyder's tape was added next. The following tape would be Jeff's. In the water, what remained of Hyder's body floated, an unbearable sight. Meanwhile, Jeff's friend wandered the beach again after surfing. There, he spotted Jeff's surfboard. His fear deepened. All of her belongings were here. So where was Jeff? That night, Tucker returned with water and bread for Jeff. But this time, Jeff was filled with rage. She kicked the tray aside, looked him dead in the eyes, and snarled, "You think you're a shark, don't you?" "But you're not a shark," Jeff spat at him, her voice shaking with fury. "You're a worm. Just a worm, a crazy worm." Hearing this, Tucker's face twisted with rage. He stormed out of the room in anger. Seizing the chance, Jeff smashed a metal bucket and sharpened a piece into a weapon. She knew Tucker would be back, and she had to be ready. Moments later, Tucker returned, holding a syringe filled with sedative. He was determined to put her under again. As soon as he stepped close, Jeff drove the sharp piece straight into his neck. Tucker staggered back, blood pouring down. Jeff snatched the keys, unlocked her restraints, and bolted. But before she could fully escape, Tucker managed to stab her leg with the injection. Dizzy, she kept running, forcing herself upstairs. On deck, she grabbed the radio and screamed for help. But there was no response. Desperate, she spotted another boat in the distance. A party was happening there, music thundering so loud her cries couldn't reach them. Tucker stumbled up onto the deck. Jeff snatched his prized camera. His obsession with it was clear, so she hurled it overboard. He panicked, diving after the sinking equipment. In that instant, Jeff threw herself into the ocean, swimming toward the party boat, but the sedative in her veins dragged her down. Midway, she lost consciousness. Tucker caught her again, dragging her limp body back and chaining her to the boat once more. Without a camera, he couldn't record her death, and without recording it, he wouldn't kill her. Jeff realized this might be her only advantage. Tucker returned to shore to fetch a new camera, leaving Jeff tied to the bed inside the boat. Meanwhile, the police were still searching for her, but her friend couldn't rest. He parked at the lot and studied the CCTV footage himself. That's when he spotted it. Tucker's truck parked near Jeff's van. The logo read, Tucker Experience. Tracing the address, he finally reached Tucker's boat. As he climbed aboard, faint cries drifted up from below deck. Breaking through the locked door, he found Jeff chained. Relief washed over her face, mixed with disbelief. "How did you even find me? I left you behind. You had no clue where I went." But he only smiled. "I told you, we met for a reason." Jeff urged him, "Go upstairs, bring something to cut these chains, and call the police right now." He hurried up, phone in hand, dialing, when Tucker appeared out of nowhere. He smashed the phone, then lunged at him. A brutal fight erupted. Jeff's friend fought back fiercely, managing to choke Tucker until he was nearly dead. But suddenly, Tucker's own friend struck from behind. He hadn't known the full truth of Tucker's cruelty until now. Hearing Jeff's terrified screams, Realization struck him, but it was already too late. Tucker drove a sharp hook into the back of Jeff's friend's head, killing him instantly. Knowing it was unsafe to stay docked, Tucker set course for a deserted island. Jeff's friend's body was tied down beside her, lifeless, or so Tucker thought. On deck, the friend stirred weakly. With his last strength, he whispered his feelings to Jeff, but Tucker arrived, dragging both of them up. He had decided one of them must die today for his next recording. He tossed the body of Jeff's friend into the bloody waters, luring sharks closer. Then he lowered him down with ropes. Sharks circled hungrily, but they didn't attack. Following Jeff's desperate instructions, her friend kept completely still, showing no fear, no struggle. The sharks lost interest. Tucker hauled him back, frustrated. But this time, Tucker slashed deep cuts across his body, then lowered him again. Blood poured into the sea, and the sharks began to frenzy. His survival now was almost impossible. Just then, Tucker froze. Above, the sound of blades thumped across the sky. A helicopter approached, the search team looking for Jeff. That's why Tucker dragged them both back below deck and tied them up again. Jeff's friend had narrowly survived the shark attack, but his condition was critical. He was bleeding heavily and could die at any moment. Seeing him like that, Jeff struggled desperately against her handcuffs, but nothing worked. Out of sheer determination, she did something unthinkable. She snapped her own thumb, trying to pull her hand free, but it wasn't enough, so she did something even more horrifying. With her teeth, she bit through what was left of her thumb, ripping it off completely. The pain was excruciating, but finally she pulled her hand free. Just then, Tucker stormed back in with another syringe, ready to knock her out again. But Jeff dodged him, slipping out of the room and slamming the door shut behind her, locking him inside. For a moment, she thought she'd won. She raced upstairs and started the boat. But Tucker, clever as ever, knew another way out. Within moments, he appeared, shutting down the entire system. There was no other choice now. Jeff charged at him. A brutal fight broke out, both of them clawing for survival. After a long struggle, she dove overboard, swimming toward a nearby island where a wedding celebration was underway. But the water around her turned dangerous fast. Her hand was bleeding badly, and she could feel sharks circling. Worse, Tucker followed in a smaller boat. She fought her way forward, but before she could reach the island, Tucker caught her again. Once more, he knocked her unconscious and dragged her back. This time, Tucker realized the true threat wasn't her wounded friend, it was Jeff. So he strapped her friend to a chair and hung Jeff upside down from the ship's rigging, suspending her just above the water. Then, out of the depths, a massive great white shark emerged. The other sharks scattered in its presence. Tucker's eyes lit up. This was his ultimate show. He was thrilled and terrified because as a child, he himself had been attacked by a great white. Without hesitation, he lowered Jeff into the water, but Jeff stayed calm. Even as the great white circled her, she didn't panic, and it didn't strike. Desperate, Tucker jabbed at the shark with a spear, trying to provoke it. But the spear slipped, cutting Jeff's ropes instead. She fell into the water, face to face with the beast. The shark swam close, its massive jaws parting, yet it turned away. Jeff realized something. On its body was a long scar. This shark, too, had survived humans. It wasn't a monster. Humans were. Humans. The true dangerous animals, who killed without mercy, who slaughtered creatures that had done them no harm. That realization gave Jeff new strength. She climbed back onto the boat, grabbed the spear, and rammed it straight into Tucker. He staggered backward, losing balance, and plunged into the water. The great white was waiting. In an instant, it clamped its jaws around him, thrashing violently. Tucker screamed, but the shark dragged him under, tearing him apart. His own death became the final, perfect recording, the last tape of the Tucker experience. But Jeff, too, fell into the water, exhausted and wounded. Her friend, horrified, thought he had lost her forever. He cried out in despair. Then, against all odds, Jeff broke the surface, alive. Weak but unbroken, she swam back and helped her friend to his feet. She was the brave one. She always had been. Lighting a flare, she signaled a passing boat. By sheer luck, they saw it and came rushing to help. And so, through courage and sheer willpower, Jeff not only survived, but saved her friend's life as well. The nightmare of Tucker ended here. And with that, the story of this film came to a close.